Welcome to Hodgepodge Australia. Today we're making an anti-Valentine's Day cake. That's right, I curse you with my dying breath. Let's get started. Bake yourself a square cake and a round cake. Both of my cakes are 8 inches. You can see there that I'm going to cut the circle cake in half and I'm going to place it at the top. I'm just going to trim off the edges of the cake there just to make it flush because you can see it's sort of pointing up. So just trimming off the edge to get that nice and flush. You have a lovely heart. So if you don't want to bake a really big cake and then cut it into one heart, you can just easily bake a square cake and a round cake. And tidying up our edges is always a good idea. Let's get started with a crumb coat. So using some icing, I've got some lovely dusty pink / orange icing here, which, works well for a heart theme, even though it's quite misleading at the moment. But we're going to do a nice crumb coat on this cake. We're going to make sure it all sticks together nicely. Make sure it is as smooth as possible on the top and the sides so that when we put our fondant down, we don't have any strange markings. Next, we're moving on to our fondant. So let's roll out a big lot of purple fondant. I mean, obviously you can use any color you want, but I really love the purple. I'm going for a real gothic style here. So rolling out some purple fondant, I've laid it over my cake, and using a pizza cutter, I'm just trimming around the edges. When you do trim around the edges, don't cut right up against the cake because the fondant will shrink up a little bit and you'll find that you will have some icing seeping out from under the fondant onto the cake board. Moving on, I'm going to be using a sweet stamp for this cake. This is a template style that you can get in a few different styles of lettering. The styles I'm using is called Stylish. Pulling out the letters that you want to spell out the word that you are going to emboss onto your cake, you lay it out onto the bench top. You can see there I'm putting it all together so that you have it how you would like it on the cake. Then using the adhesive pad, which is an added extra, it doesn't come with the lettering when you buy it, but I found it quite helpful because otherwise you have to do each individual letter and make sure it all lines up. So this makes sure that you get the whole word on there in one hit. You're going to lay out your lettering so that it's how you want it, and then press your sweet stamp emboss pad over the top, and there is your word. So getting your cake, now make sure your fondant is still nice and soft. Don't try and do this on dry fondant. All you're going to do is crack it. Take my word for it. So get some nice, still pliable fondant. Bring your cake down. I found it was helpful if I got down onto the level of my cake so I could see the lettering pressing down. That way I know that I'm straight with my lettering and I know that it's where I want it on the cake. Now you can see I'm starting with the bottom word because I want to make sure I don't run out of room if I start at the top. And you can see there I have the word breath at the bottom. I did get a little bit of the embossing pad imprinted onto the top of the cake there, but just rub that out and we can keep going. Moving ahead, we're going to put in the rest of our letters. So now we've gone for dyeing. As I mentioned, I am going from the bottom up because I don't want to run out of room at the bottom as it is the smallest point of my cake. Normally, you could easily just work from the top if you're doing just like a happy birthday or somebody's name. And for the final letter, I can just do that by hand because it doesn't need to be on the imprint. It's literally the letter I. Moving on to painting. I have some gold luster dust here, which I am going to mix with some vodka. Oh no, I have to open a bottle of vodka. Oh, whatever will I do? But just adding a little bit of vodka to this, I'm going to mix it together to create a lovely watercolory consistency, and I'm going to get a fine paintbrush, and now comes the fun part of filling in all those gaps. Now, as this was my first time using a sweet stamp, I didn't press down too hard as I didn't really want to break my fondant, but in the future when I use it, I will add a little bit more pressure so that it really gets embossed into the cake, and it does make the painting a little bit easier so I don't have to be so delicate. This painting, in actual fact, which you will only see for a couple of seconds, took me 20 minutes. Probably over that if you count in all the times I went back over it. But if I had a little bit more of depth in the lettering, I could probably have gone a little bit faster. But I did enjoy the task of painting. While I finish this up, don't forget to subscribe to Hodgepodge Australia. We do put up a video once a week, and do like this video because it helps my channel grow. I'm getting very close to 10,000 subscribers and I would really love to hit that shortly. We're finishing up this cake by decorating it with some black roses. If you'd like to see how I made these fondant roses, I do have 2 techniques, and there is a video going up that you can watch that will show you how to create them. This is a lovely Art Deco theme, Gothic theme to go with the message on the cake. And I'm just showing you here, I've got some toothpicks in there to attach. If you are having trouble pressing it in because you don't want to ruin your roses by adding too much pressure, just use the scissors to help guide that toothpick in. If you don't know where this message comes from, it is because I listen to the My Favorite Murder podcast. If you have made it this far into the video, shout out to you and an SSDGM. They did this fantastic episode recently on the Galapagos affair, and this was a message that a man wrote to his wife on his deathbed. You can tell it did not go well. They clearly didn't like each other, but I thought, what a way to tell somebody that you are done with them by making them a heart cake with the message, "I curse you with my dying breath." It has stuck with me. This story, I have told so many people about it. It absolutely blew my mind. So a shout out to Karen and Georgia for entertaining me every week with the podcast. Thank you so much, ladies. And thank you for the inspiration for this cake. So finishing up, I just decided to add some vines to really just solidify. I just loved the texture of the vines, and I felt like it again went with that Gothic theme, went with the coloring, and coincidentally, ironically, I don't know what word you would use, but I'm actually using a heart cutter for my leaves. I don't know, just seemed fitting. So popping those on upside down, you can see I have them, and just adding a little bit of water to my vines once I was happy with the placement. Don't stick them down first because you want to be able to fiddle around and make sure you're happy with where they are. So just play with the placement first, then add a little bit of water later. And there you have an anti-Valentine's Day cake for the ages. I curse you with my dying breath. I would love to see the look on somebody's face if they received that one for Valentine's Day, or even as a divorce cake. Thank you so much for watching our channel. Do hit the subscribe button, do hit that like button, hit that notification bell, and we will see you again real soon.